welcome everyone to another day of Active Teaching Lab. We're going to be talking about course design today with Aragon Quinn. I really appreciate you all coming out here. There's no snow today, so yay! It's starting to melt. It's supposed to be, what, 60 tomorrow or something like that? So just the weather's turning. I've seen the birds flying north. Spring is on its way. Really excited about that. So today we're going to get started here. Welcome to those of you who are watching online as well. I really appreciate your presence. Remember, if you do have any questions, Kathy Pinkowski will be able to help you. She'll be monitoring the chat room on YouTube. And also, if you don't have a YouTube account, you can go to the Canvas course, the Active Teaching Lab Canvas course, and Kathy will be monitoring that chat as well. And also, those of you in the room, Kathy Pinkowski of the College of Letters and Sciences is available for in-house questions. And I'll even put Sarah McDonald, our teaching, what are we again? Teaching, learning?
We're teaching, learning, and technology consultants.
Teaching, learn. Have the same title, and I never ever remember it. I have to look at my business card. Teaching, learning, and technology consultant. And Sarah would be able to help you as well. So if you ever have any questions or need some help, please feel free to ask us. And then also today we're going to be doing an in-class activity. We'll be working looking at some example course pages in Canvas. And so just if you haven't signed into the Canvas course, please do so, or just kind of have that process ready so that when we do jump into the active teaching kind of activity, you'll be ready to go. So just to kind of give you a warning on that. Again, we also have a YouTube channel, so if you haven't, if you're online, you're already watching that, so it's great. But for those of you who maybe missed a session, we have our archived sessions all available on YouTube, and we also have some of our handouts from the last couple of weeks. And we've done 5 of these already. This is number 6, kind of hard to believe. So if you want a handout from one of the past weeks, that's available over on the corner there, and they're always available online as well. In-class activity. So today we'll be talking about Canvas page design with Dr. Aragon Quinn. Dr. Quinn is a native of San Francisco, and he comes to UW-Milwaukee after completing his doctoral work at Stanford University. He is currently an assistant professor and program coordinator in the Japanese program in the Department of Foreign Languages and Literature, and his research is in modern Japanese performance, with a book project entitled Staging the Resistance, Performing the Politics of Translation in Modern Japan. He is an impassioned educator and will next year be a fellow with the Wisconsin Teaching Fellows and Scholars. Congratulations for that as well. That's really cool. So I really appreciate him coming in, and he'll be talking to us about Canvas page design. So Dr. Quinn.
That's some contemporary Japanese performance?
No, that is not contemporary. No, in fact, that's actually that's a hack that I use to keep my lock screen from kicking on. So if you, this is a total aside, but if you run Windows Media Player and if you use your laptop and it keeps getting your lock screen to jump on, and you have to put in your password. I just run a 15-minute video on repeat on Windows Media Player, and it keeps the lock screen off. So that's what that is. Okay, so my caveat that I'll start this off with is that I don't have any particular expertise in user experience design, except for except for whatever you can get through osmosis from living in Silicon Valley for a long time, and I'm still sort of feeling my way through designing my Canvas page, but I do have some things that I'd like to share that I've experienced. In my second iteration of my advanced reading class, a Japanese newspaper reading class that I'm doing this semester, and the first time through I used D2L, and the second time through I used Canvas, and there's some things that have turned out to be so much better this time through. So the main kind of the main challenge that I had the first time through this class, which is one that probably none of you have experienced, but we would come in and have an assignment or a quiz, and I'd get this complaint of I didn't know what you wanted me to do, or possibly even worse, I didn't know we had an assignment or a reading or a quiz today. I'm sure I'm the only one who's heard this from from my students.
Something like that.
And it got me tearing my hair out because I would say we talked about this in class, and it's in the syllabus, and it's on the course site, and yet I was sort of driven to kind of figure out what is it that's the barrier for students, and I think part of it is that they don't necessarily read the syllabus, and so that puts a lot of weight and importance on the course design and how well you've kind of got things laid out, and going looking in retrospect. It's maybe not terribly surprising that students would get lost. This is a random page from the first time through my newspaper class, and it's just a wall of text, right? And there's nothing. There's really nothing there that kind of delineates any kind of hierarchy and tells students what's important to see. Part of that was my design. And certainly the design in this could be better, but part of that is built into the way that D2L worked. And even just kind of navigating the site along that left-hand column, there's these kind of units that people work through, but there's no sense of when are the big exams, when are the big projects coming, when are the biggest readings. It's really just a list, and that actually didn't really change a whole lot initially when I went through Canvas. This is the home page of my current version of that class in Canvas. And again, you've just got kind of a list here, and you can indent things, that's true, but you can't really do much with fonts, you can't do things with color, you can't put images in there. And so it's kind of students look at this and they don't really have a sense of where am I going to focus my energy in this semester. And so that sort of drew my attention to kind of eschewing this front page as the way to navigate through this course and focusing on page design. And I'd like to show just show an example of what exactly I was trying to do. So I also teach a Japanese performance class, and I actually know there's at least one person in this room who has seen Kabuki and know, but I would guess probably most of you haven't, and that would be indicative of most of my students. And so when I tell students we're going to talk about No next week, it really brings up a big blank nothing, right? But if I show them this image and I say this is a woman on a No stage, and we're going to talk about this performance genre next week. There's so much information that you can get out of this that they can't get out of reading, kind of reading a text, right? I mean, we've got a performance genre that uses masks. We've got a performance genre that has kind of a subdued color palette. And when we go into Kabuki, we've got this beautiful woman here. And we can, and again, students will probably never have seen Kabuki, but you can get so much information out of seeing this image of Kabuki that will kind of prime you to what you can expect. And then looking at these two images, you're primed to be surprised to find out that these beautiful women here are actually men. Once they're performed by men. Once we start talking about this, these two performance genres. So there's kind of all this information that you can get that's sort of greater than what you can get if this was just described textually. And so that's sort of what I wanted to get out of the course site, and I also wanted to get a sense of hierarchy and kind of get students to do what it is I want them to do. Quickly, so that they're focused, not navigating the questions of what I want them to do, but spending their time on doing what I want them to do. And so this is a tea room, and Whether or not you've ever been to a tea ceremony before or been in a tea room, again, I think at least one person in this room has. You could walk into this room and you would have a pretty clear sense of where should my focus be, right? We've got this scroll hanging right in the middle with this kind of architectural frame around it and a little a little plant next to it, and that's clearly sort of where our attention should be, and you should know that whether or not you've ever been to a tea ceremony before. And so that's the model. That's what I was going for. I want students to kind of come into the page and know exactly what it is that I was trying to get them to do, so that I don't get those complaints of I didn't know there was an assignment and I didn't know what you wanted me to do in that assignment. So that's something that I found that I was really able to do in Pages and Canvas that I wasn't able to do in D2L for sure, but also on the site, on the main homepage of Canvas. And so I've navigated my course through the pages rather than through that main splash page. And so what I've done is I've kind of focused in on what it is I want my students to get out of this page, and kind of ordered it in hierarchies. So the most important thing I want them to get out of looking at each page, out of each week's assignments, is they should know the action items, they should know the assignments, they should know quizzes, things that they have to do. And their attention should be very quickly drawn to that. The second most important thing, I guess, would be kind of dividing up information so that it's not just one mash of wall of text. And then kind of lastly would be descriptions and things that if they have time and they have interest and they can kind of slow down and look at the page, they will get more information out of reading them. But they can in fact skip this if they need to, and kind of visually communicate what's the most important thing that they should get out of looking at this page. And so there's at least 4 ways that I've used to do this, and they're not terribly groundbreaking or earth-shattering. But the first is indenting, and that's something that's kind of really easily set out in Canvas. They make indenting something that's really obvious a way to make hierarchies. The other 3 are a little at least some of them are a little, they take a little more kind of effort to bring them into your pages. But different font styles are ways to communicate importance. Font size, of course, and then colors. And so I'd just like to show, this is the page. Unfortunately, it's kind of squeezed down, so it's a little hard to see in the back of the room. But this is the kind of this is a page from week 3 of this new iteration of my newspaper reading class. And so I have these. I use 2 different font styles. I use a font style for topics and sort of headers, and then I use a topic for content. And that's still design language that I carry all through the course. And so when I make PowerPoints, I also use the same 2 fonts, and I use them in the same way. And when I give them quizzes and when I give them handouts, I use that design language kind of all the way through the course. And so this kind of hopefully this kind of helps them navigate what it is kind of visually navigate what it is they're looking at. There's kind of very, very clearly kind of font size differences, and I have these big. There's another section actually it didn't fit on this page. I have these big sections that are broken up by this large header font, and then I focus on color, and so kind of all of the weeks in this course are laid out in exactly the same way. So there will be an image at the top that will kind of communicate what is the article that we're reading. What is it generally about? We know it's not about, I don't know, we know it's not about making sushi, right? And when they come down into the kind of into the body of the material here, when they see this kind of maroon color, this is always used for a reading that they have to do. And so they kind of quickly know they should, at least after the first couple of weeks, they should quickly know that, okay, Tuesday, I've got maroon, okay, there's something that I have to have red. I've got this kind of bright red for an assignment that's due. And all of my links are in this kind of blue color. And so that's something that you will need to do. So when you get to Wednesday, this is something you will have to have done. And then I have this kind of this light green color for an in-class quiz. And then at the very end, there's this. Rachel's going to need to bring in an assignment for next week. And that's kind of color coded in that goldish color. So that color coding kind of carries through all throughout the semester. And so students will have kind of a very clear and quick sense of this is something I need to do, and this is the kind of thing that I'm going to need to do. And so I guess the way this is, I guess I don't have really great metrics, but I can say that between the two iterations of this course, the number of assignments that have been not done has dropped off precipitously. There are still every once in a while someone who doesn't do a homework assignment or bring in their article for the next week. But generally, this semester has been markedly different from last semester. And then I think possibly maybe a less hard statistic, but I had a student last week tell me, Sensei, you really figured out Canvas this semester. And that made me feel like, yes, okay, something's going right. So that's what I wanted to share today. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to tell you whatever I might know or pretend that I know. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Judith. I'm the ed technologist at SOE, so I'm new here, so I'm rocking what you say. 2 questions about color. When did they learn the color key so that they know what colors mean?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you handle color blindness?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't run into that second issue yet. So
Because red and green are trigger colors as a common color blindness issue.
Interesting.
Okay.
I haven't run into that yet, and so I haven't thought about it yet.
Okay.
I'll be totally honest. In terms of when they figure out the color palette,
So do you have a key at the beginning, or do they just?
I don't. But by the second week, it's exactly the same, and they haven't asked about it.
So the pattern of it is?
The pattern is exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
How do you get them to navigate from the main homepage into the pages?
So that's something I actually spend class time to do. On the first day, I actually in this particular class I don't use PowerPoint or any projection because we're just using physical newspapers. But in the first day, I do bring in a PowerPoint and I do bring in a computer and I show them how to log into Canvas, and I say, you're going to hit this page. This is not what you want to navigate the course through. You want to click through onto the first page, and then it actually it was cut off at the bottom, but there's buttons where you can go back and forth through the pages, and so you can, once you're into the page system, then you can kind of you can stay in the page system.
And how easy is it then to jump? You know, if you're, say, a student who's in week 5 and then you want to go back and look at something in week 1, do you have to scroll through or can you jump around?
So there's back and forth buttons at the bottom, and so it would just be a matter of kind of clicking through 3 pages or 4 pages or whatever.
Okay. So there's not a table of contents for it?
Well, you can go back to the home page, right?
Okay.
So you can jump out and go to the home page, but I encourage them not to because just because there's so much effort spent in in kind of getting them to get used to using the pages.
Could you bring up your pages?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how it looks like.
Oh, you mean the actual page? So this is the actual page, but the bottom is cut off. I tried to log in, but I wasn't able to log in. So.
I'll be able to show you the next and forward buttons though. So I'll bring up a Canvas course. You'll be able to see that.
Question I see, you've got Tuesday, you want to read this, Wednesday, you've got an assignment due, Thursday, you've got a quiz in class. is that kind of a consistent pattern through the class where you gotta read something, and you have an assignment due, and then you've got a quiz?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and so that makes it easy for them, it makes an easy pattern for them to see. It also makes it easy to duplicate, because you can go into the HTML code for this particular page, just copy that and put it into the next week and you know, change, you know, do some little tweaking here and there, but yes.
Okay.
In this particular class, this is a pattern that will play out for the whole rest of the semester.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this might be kind of a you/Seagull folk question. So do you essentially eliminate all of the other options from that left side toolbar? Like they can't navigate to the announcement page or the syllabus page? Do you just have like the home page and pages? Is that your side?
I wish I could. I
Okay.
don't think we have that ability.
You can get rid of syllabus now, but that's this semester. This semester, there's some new things you can get rid of, like
Oh, okay.
discussion, or you can add discussion now, but you can get rid of syllabus. I think announcements is still locked on,
Still stuck, okay.
but you can experiment, like you can just
Yeah.
like try turning all of it off and then see what sticks.
Yeah. Okay, so you're just day one hammering home like, go to pages, go to
Yes.
Canvas, go to pages.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and that works.
Yeah, and I wish there was a way to force them to do it, but right now, it's just, it's like, yeah, it's beating them over the head with it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
just to be clear, since I know Pages is one of the links that currently we're not able to turn on, do you have them, are the pages that you've created in a module or several
They're in a
modules of the
module,
homepage?
yeah.
So they still, they
so
go to the
way-
homepage
Yeah,
and
so you
enter
get
the
to the
module?
homepage, you've got these modules at the beginning, and I tell them, don't stay on the modules, go into the page. And I guess the other thing that I do is, instead of, when I have quizzes, I don't put them in the modules, I don't put them as separate units in the modules, I put them in the pages. So they have to actually go into the page to access all the things that they need to do.
Okay, so you're still using the home page and having these pages live in modules there.
Right.
But then you don't have like a big module, you have a page that would take them out to where they need to go.
Right. So I take all of the things that might otherwise be in a module and I put them into the page, which forces them to go into the page system.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to kind of circumvent that kind of home page
Right.
completely, but until there is, then this is the workaround that I
Thank
have
you.
for that, yeah. Yeah,
It was just, now that you've explained that, I realized that in a much less attractive way than something similar where for each class, you go to a page and all the links you need for that class, along with here's what you're doing. So I've ended up, instead of having separate readings, they're all now embedded. But in a way, it forces them to actually get to the material that they want. But not nearly as attractive as you could.
yeah, but the same idea, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that you don't expect them to require them to hit multiple things. You go to one spot and it's all there, and anything you need links into it, and certainly using color for outlines or whatever. It's a real, I think I discovered that the hard way too.
Right, yeah, it's, once I created this, I felt kind of dumb that it took me this long to get to this point.
I mean,
So for those of you who this is painfully obvious, I'm sorry.
Well, to share a story, I had something different but similar in that I had things for students to kind of read for the reading, and I had one student who, even though we talked about it the first day, it's on the syllabus, they read the syllabus we talked about, still never realized they had to open the file to actually get the stuff that I was for until they were a month into it. So this is really good.
Yeah,
This is an on-site, in-classroom on-site?
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
How do you envision, I mean, is this something, you mentioned physical papers. I mean, I taught a course with archiving, and so having the physical stuff mattered.
Mhm.
But do you see doing this into a hybrid or an online, and how would you change, or would you think about different things for those of us who are doing pure online or blended?
So for this particular class, I have resisted doing this online for a couple of reasons. One, the main reason is when you've got something where the main focus is language and reading newspapers, if you put that online, it's really easy for them to just put it into
Yeah.
Google Translate and be like, hey, I did the reading.
Oh.
And I haven't quite figured out a way to
For this class, yeah.
to kind of get them out of using Google Translate and internalize the language in a way that they don't reach for kind of electronic tools, where they can look at this and they can read it and they can talk about it.
Okay.
And so this particular class, I haven't figured out a way to gear this towards online.
Yeah, I hadn't connected it was a language class. If you're doing a Japanese culture class, would you be able to, you know, where the emphasis on learning the language or not translating it easily? I'm just curious how this would translate to an online, but if it's a language class, that makes sense why you wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a language class in the sense that, one of the key heavy lifts for them is to be able to look at a newspaper and be able to kind of, talk about what it's about, right? Yeah, I mean, I think this would translate into online. I don't teach online, so I feel not terribly comfortable making, kind of big statements about,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So when you have these pages and they're staying in the pages, when they open up Canvas, do the assignments pop up with like due dates, or do you somehow override that? How does?
No, so the due dates and stuff, they're still along the side in the pages.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, and that's helpful, and, it's helpful, but it also, it's sort of necessary but not sufficient, because those reminders were in the course before, right?
Right.
But they were not
Clicking on.
they were not doing what they were supposed to be doing, yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question, and it's kind of paranoid, and maybe it's more for Lane, but, so I've only been a student in D2L, and I've only ever taught in Canvas, and what I really see as a big difference is Canvas having this page option, whereas D2L seemed to be a lot of like uploading the PDF, upload the document, but I feel like and this is where I'm paranoid, I feel like that design is intentional, because this looks gorgeous, but you can't translate this to any other content management system. And I'm sure we're probably gonna have Canvas for a while, but it does make me nervous that if I build PDFs, those work anywhere, anytime, and like when I build, and the thing is, I am building more and more pages because there is so much like integrating the content in the YouTube, when you do a YouTube video, it like embeds right there, and it looks really good, and I think it is really effective, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I
no,
do have this like,
that's-
I'm getting sucked into what Canvas wants me to get sucked into, now I have to use them,
That is a great point. I think what I would say is that you can export this, because there's a little button up there that can switch it into HTML code, and you can
Okay.
just copy that HTML code and put it into a file somewhere.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah,
This is all run in HTML5, so you
Okay.
can easily pop it into a website. You can easily, it'll look slightly different because the CSS is gonna be different, but you can get this content out. So,
Okay.
or, yes, hopefully rest makes you rest.
Yes, thank you.
Can I follow up? I have a question for you, but also anybody here. When you're designing a course, I'm real visual, so sometimes like when I'm presenting a lecture, I do the design work in PowerPoint, even if I'm not using PowerPoint, because it helps me work through the steps. So when you're doing this, are you doing the actual first time designing the class in Canvas, or are you creating like a Word document or an outline, or how do you do the pre-structuring before you get in here? Because I'm seeing that then you'd have, you at least have that, but.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, how do people do their thinking about their class organizing before they get into actually building what you're describing?
So, I hope this is okay, literally,
Yeah.
so I was Canvas Pioneer in the fall, and I had someone's course from D2L, and it would literally, I got access to Canvas a week before my very first class was starting, so I imported, her D2L class into my Canvas site, and then, so it was set up weekly, and then I honestly, I don't do it, I do a similar structure to what you're doing on the page, but I really liked, there was an earlier session with the designers from the School of Nursing.
Oh, yeah.
So was that week, was it the second one?
Yeah.
So honestly, I've done that, and she does what you do, but she does it with the indenting of the modules, and then, like kind of a similar format, so I'm not really a visual thinker, so maybe I'm not the right person.
And there's
to
No, no,
answer
handouts
this
for that
question,
right
but,
over there.
Yeah, I'm just curious how people think before they do this, because I'm gonna be working with faculty who are doing the transfer and who are building courses for the first time. And I know how I design a course, but that's not necessarily how, so I'm just curious how different people, that your question made me think of, what do you do before you actually are, if it's an original class, you're doing your own build?
I know the people who had materials already in my department, the way it was introduced to them was start with your blank canvas and then build it week by week. So they kind of, and so I think if you already, the import is messy, so I don't know that I recommend that. It was good for me because I didn't have anything. And then I had something to start from.
I mean, if somebody else would like to offer an idea as well.
Yeah,
please.
that's
So-
good one.
So I built a whole bunch of pages, and they live on my syllabus page, and they're like my frequently asked questions for my course, so I teach really large enrollment, like,
This is in Canvas now?
yeah, like
Okay.
250 students, and so I get the same questions all the time. And so I have my syllabus page that has like, here's the syllabus, which is like the old school Word doc, and then there's like, basically the syllabus broken out into different pages, so like required materials, office hours, so if they just want those, they can go there. So when I built those for the first time, I did them de novo in Canvas, and then, so I taught in the fall in Canvas and in the spring, and so those I just imported from course to course and kind of reset up that page with the same stuff. But they're not as rich with graphics and they're not as pretty. They have some links to other pages or to other course materials, but they're definitely more kind of static, but easy to copy semester to semester.
And I started just using a Word document and then I copied and pasted over. So I had a template in a Word document, put everything in the order I wanted it, and then I could just copy it over to Pages, which is not perfect either, but that way I could create it and I'm paranoid, so I had it was my own document and I could keep the structure because I just would, I would copy it to like week 1, week 2, and then I made sure it was exactly the same.
Erin, I missed this, the first class you showed us in D2L, was that this class? The same one? Did you show us both the D2L version?
It was the
and-
first iteration of this
Yeah.
class, yeah.
And then,
And I did not import that version of it.
that's what I was
into
gonna
this,
ask, did
yeah.
you start over, did you?
I started completely over,
Okay.
I mean, you saw that page, and
Yeah.
that was not something I wanted to duplicate in the
Okay.
next version. And so, so Word is certainly one way that you can certainly, kind of do it in Word and then copy it over. You lose a lot of formatting if you do it that way, and if you use something that uses HTML code, you'll keep that formatting, so. But Word is easy and it's there, right, so.
So maybe it's a good place to get your text in if you're worried about losing it, but formatting, don't touch it until you get into the HTML side.
Right,
And that way
right.
you don't have to do it twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
And I haven't tried starting this in Dreamweaver and kind of taking that code from Dreamweaver and putting it in, but that might be another option that would, you would have all of the things that you would have access to in Word, but then you would also be able to keep that formatting.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions? I got one. If you came out, you had some really good design ideas and elements that you're providing here. What is the one you think, if you take away nothing else, this is the one design idea or page design idea that you should do? Like, what's the one you think, bam, this is the one you should really take home?
So to get over that problem of I didn't know what you want me to do,
Yeah.
it's all about hierarchy. And so whatever it is you choose to kind of focus on to get hierarchy of information out of these pages, that I think that's the key thing. That's the key thing that has made this class better for me than it was last time.
Oh, yes.
So at my previous institution, we could have our page come up on the announcement page, so like every week, you could put this on the announcement page, and all they'd have to do is go to Canvas, and it would be right there. Is that something that we will ever get?
I was told not to talk about this. There's nothing official, right? But there's ideas percolating out
Okay.
there. Yes,
that
because
would
Canvas
be
is by this,
so beautiful for especially this course
Yeah.
design with the pictures and.
you could have
This is
this
just
as your
so-
front
yeah.
page, when they first log into the course, bam, this is what they see. Week 3, February 5 and 7, picture, content,
And
that's
that's
it.
it. Yeah,
And then they could go,
it's
because
so
you have it
clean.
all organized. Yeah, I'm just saying there's talks. I'm not gonna say there's anything happening about those talks, but there are talks.
Who are the talks? Is it Seattle or is it the bigger system? Who's,
It's, those who shall not be named. So,
so it's not just here, it's the whole UW system talk
those, it's
people?
the first rule of Fight Club.
We won't tell anybody.
No, we won't tell anybody. Yeah, that's right.
It's just on YouTube.
It's just on YouTube. All right, no. Any other questions? These are good questions, absolutely, yeah. No, all right, well, thank you so much, Aragorn, for coming in. I really appreciate it. Great discussion.